What's up, everybody? Welcome to We're Offended, You're Offended. I'm Kim. This is Tyler, and welcome back, Amy. She's been on a couple of
Hey.
our other podcasts, so you can go check them out. I can't remember what numbers they were, but they were there.
Yeah, me neither. Sorry.
It is Friday, so casual Friday and
Uh,
all.
Actually, actually, I would cancel that because we have another one to do that's about the Amber Heard and all that, and PTSD and all that shit. So this is going to be an extra shots episode.
We're gonna talk about PTSD.
No, this is going to be after. Like me and Kim have another
I've
one.
got
to
so many
do
opinions
about,
on all of that content.
I know.
Yeah, we
Amber
can.
Heard, abortion.
So many
God, what
things.
else? Amanda Duarte having a fucking meltdown on the Twitter sphere, like literal racist. Like holy,
Yeah, I saw that.
holy.
Like intense. Hey, that comment about.
Yeah.
Maybe I won't spoil
one?
the fun if you're planning a different episode, but
Which one? The Trump? I want to get impregnated by Trump so I could chop the baby's head off. That one?
yeah, so that one, and also she had another one that was like, I wonder
God.
how all these white men would feel if a black man came and got their daughter pregnant.
Oh my
I
God.
do wonder how these white supremacist lawmakers would feel if their little white daughters were raped and impregnated by a black man.
Oh my God.
You just like that is that if not racist, that is severely bigoted. Like,
Okay.
Like you want to talk about like
it is very much
latent
racist.
racism, like under like
holy
secret
fuck.
racism, right? Like I am conscious enough of that kind of shit that I like that would not come out of me. Like there's no way.
Okay, so
And
Amy,
I'm pretty ballsy.
are you
Yeah.
on a time crunch today?
Not crazy, no.
No. Okay.
I'm
Well, you know what?
I pumpkin up at midnight or so.
Well, we're already talking about certain things like this, so we can just jump right in, and then halfway through
Uh-oh.
we can cut it short and start a second episode just all together. Seeing as how we're already talking about all the shit that's
We're
going to
talking
happen in the
about so
next two
much shit.
episodes.
Oh, how
So
PP fucking just ended Jean Charest his political career in a 2-minute soundbite.
I don't even know what
Oh, you'll see it. It's so fucking good. It's so fucking good.
that is. Okay,
Shut
so
it.
Tyler,
I feel like this is just a racket for the Conservative Party to get money. Honestly, I feel like it's a way for them to funnel money into the party to have all these candidates because every single one of those candidates pays $300,000.
And I'll say Pierre, 2 years later, finally came out and said, yeah, I support people's right to protest and the truckers, and they just want their freedoms back. Maxime Bernier from day one was saying, no, this ain't right. This ain't right.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I
You're
think
a little late, but
yeah,
too old.
Poilievre was just being the finance critic, and I don't know what to say about that, or I don't know if he was, like I was saying before we started, like I'm someone who's changed her mind on things, on big things. So I mean, it can happen, right? What are tons of inspiring kids movies are about how someone realized they were wrong and how to change a part, right?
100%.
The hero's journey. Yeah.
I mean, these things do happen. They really do. It could be that Poilievre was involved with WEF, saw the shit that's going down, and started to be like, whoa. This isn't about like just trying to make a better economy. Y'all be trying to take over the world. Maybe, but I don't know. I don't trust anybody as far as I could throw them. And that's the bigger problem now is I'm like, y'all be trying to fuck me. So I don't know.
There's enough talking about abortion, so that's pretty fitting.
Yeah,
Right.
well, that's a big conversation too. Like that's a conversation where there have been people, or there are people that are very one side or the other, and you have the few of them that are kind of walking that middle line where which I think that I'm more like the tightrope walker. But before we get into anything else, don't forget you can check us out on Twitter, Facebook. We have a group there too. Instagram. You can also watch us on YouTube and Rumble, or listen to us on Spotify, Anchor. Um, yeah, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, leave some comments in the comment section below, and please share. Share us. It makes us feel warm and fuzzy inside. Do it.
It's nice. It's nice. It's a good
Okay,
feeling, you know?
Right?
which one are we going to talk on the abortion thing first? Should we look at doing that? Because
Yeah,
I can
let's start
save.
there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll save the question of the day because it's
Doozy.
I'll give you some time to think about it. Amber Heard or Johnny Depp?
Okay.
Okay, so before we get into the whole abortion thing, so it's the Roe v. Wade. Okay, so that's what everybody
Yeah.
has the up in arms with. So I had done a little bit of looking into to kind of better understand what it actually means. And I think there's a lot of people out there that just hear the hype of people and oh, that means you're not going to be able to get abortions anymore and this and that. And everybody's up in arms and they don't actually know what it means. So to anybody else out there who actually doesn't know what this Roe v. Wade is, I'm going to give you a little bit of a fill in here and then we will carry on. So, Roe v. Wade, which was done in 1973, it was a landmark decision from the U.S. Supreme Court, which the court ruled that the Constitution of the United States protects a pregnant woman's liberty to choose to have an abortion without excessive government restrictions. The decision struck down many U.S. federal and state abortion laws. Roe fueled an ongoing abortion debate in the United States about whether to extend abortion or the extent of abortion should be legal. Who should decide the legality of the abortion and what the role of moral and religious views in a political sphere should be. It's also shaped a debate concerning what methods of the Supreme Court, oh my God, court should use in constitutional adjudication. So with this,
Constitutional.
I think I said that constitutional, but anyway, so what this actual ruling was okay. In 1973, they had decided that for when a woman was in their first trimester, which is 0 to 13 weeks, it's entirely up to the mother if they want to have an abortion or not. So government backs down, just okay. Between this time, this is entirely the mother's decision. In the second trimester, from 14 to 26 weeks, the government can regulate it, but not ban, especially if it has anything to do with the mother's health. The third trimester, 27 to 40 weeks, the government can prohibit except when a mother's health is in danger. So this is what Roe v. Wade is, okay? Don't really think that's anything really, really bad. So then I started looking into what would happen if the Supreme Court had overturned Roe v. Wade. Would abortion be illegal or would it mean that the state would have to get to decide? So basically, what it is that Roe v. Wade decision in 1973 made abortion legal nationwide. But overturning Roe would not mean a nationwide ban on the practice. Rather, it would give jurisdiction back to the states, each of which would be able to decide whether or not to allow abortion within these borders. And there are some states that would outlaw it completely, such as Louisiana, Mississippi, North and South Dakota. In a lot of the other ones, abortion is likely to remain legal in many of the other states. They would just have, they could kind of make those rules where a lot of them, there's 20 states that would kind of keep how it's going right now, like within a
They
certain
keep it the
parameter.
same.
Okay,
Yeah.
you can get it, but then at this point, unless it's a mother's health decision or life, if the mother's life is in jeopardy, then we can agree to this. But other than that, no. So,
So, as an aside on that,
Mhm.
there's basically no health care provider out there who would perform that procedure after the first trimester, basically, or after, here in Canada, for example, after 20 weeks, without it being literally this woman's going to die. So it's not even a matter of law. Like in Canada, for example, we have no law whatsoever on abortion.
it's gross.
However, the colleges and the healthcare providers themselves, like within their ethical guidelines still won't perform those procedures. You can't roll in and be like, I'm 34 weeks pregnant and I just don't want it anymore. They won't do that.
But that's
No.
federal though.
In Canada, we have
Provincially,
no
it's very
law.
different. As a
Provincially,
federal mandate.
but provincially, the barrier is access to services. So provincially, there are no regulations like on a provincial legal level, barring anything either. However, through the health services, so the thing that's coming up right now in Canada, for example, to distract everybody, is that, and I think it's Nova Scotia or Newfoundland, one or the other, their provincial government will not pay for abortions performed in private clinics. They won't fund those. They
Okay.
only fund them performed in hospitals. So this is the thing that people are starting to get grumpy about in Canada to try to draw any attention to this at all, because we have no law and we haven't since 1988. There's no regulation federally or provincially. However, medical colleges do provide guidelines to healthcare providers, and there are ethical guidelines. And then the healthcare providers themselves have the right to decline those services at a certain point or for certain reasons. So basically, you could not go get a late term abortion in Canada or the United States just for the heck of it. Nobody would do that. Like a healthcare provider will only provide that service if your life is in danger.
Yeah, but they have
Well,
like
and
those laws where it's like the up to and including birth. Like if a baby can survive on its own and it's born, they're talking about where you can still technically have an abortion even though the baby's already born.
And that's the thing where there are big differentiations between law and regulation and college guidelines and doctors' own ability to ethically say no, right? That's why I think it's really important. Like the older I get, like the more libertarian I get, and it makes me laugh because like I was saying, I come from a family that like escaped communism from Russia, and we were taught my family was very political, and we were expected to talk about these things. And my mom had a fridge magnet that said, "If you're not a socialist when you're in your 20s, you don't have a heart, and if you're still a socialist when you're in your 30s, you don't have a brain." And
I like that.
and that always kind of made me laugh. And I would say, like, I'm not opposed to social programs or whatever. I'm not opposed to paying some taxes to have a road or to have water services or these kinds of things, right? I'm not opposed to that, but I'm still very libertarian in my ideals, and that's where this comes from. So I'm going to just pause and let you say the other things you wanted to say about the legal perspective, and then because I have interrupted you and I have realized that.
Oh, that's okay. Like
my top skill, interrupting.
For the majority of it, for my part anyway, the majority of it was done. I had just found it kind of comical that there was some lady that was in New York. I don't know what her name is. She was a black woman, some political person.
Candace Owens?
No, it was not Candace Owens. She was older. Well, middle age, whatever. Anyway, older than Candace. But they were like yelling and screaming about how about the 14th Amendment, and this goes against the 14th Amendment, and they're not going to go back to using coat hangers and stuff like that. So I had looked up what the 14th Amendment was. Okay. And the 14th
I thought it was the other way, right? Isn't it that the 14th is what they're citing?
That's what Roe v. Wade is now going to violate. Yes.
Yeah,
okay,
which
they're saying that the 9th and 14th that this is going to directly affect the 14th and 9th Amendment.
Well, and I don't know what the 9th Amendment is, but the 14th Amendment I did look up because I was curious. So it says that anyone born in the United States is a citizen, and that all states must give citizens the same rights guaranteed by the federal government in the Bill of Rights. The 14th Amendment also says that all citizens have right to due process and equal protection under the law in all states. So I don't really know how this overturning Roe v. Wade would go against that personally. Like, it didn't really make too much sense to me. But
I thought, yeah, because I had actually read that they were citing the 14th as reason to overturn it, in that it's the 14th cites that the states are it's due process of law by the state.
which makes sense, but this woman,
See?
see, I I
And
should
if
have
the federal Bill of Rights doesn't include that,
It doesn't.
then there's nothing to be done for it, right? And that's where I stand on those matters as far as that goes, is that seems cut and dry to me. If it wasn't supposed to be federal, it wasn't supposed to be federal, like it or not. Like, that's the way the law works. So other than that, you'd have to make a change then. And for what it's worth, I kind of think this is just a little bit of like, they had 50 years that they could have codified this into law, and they didn't.
Yeah.
And that kind of shows me that the powers that be wanted it to be open to keep being a problem.
Well, and I think Ruth Bader Ginsburg specifically even cited it, which the left has heralded as this champion for women's rights, has said Roe v. Wade is terrible law, and the subsequent rulings that came from that has totally fucked up what the Supreme Court's position is on that. And
yeah, they used her.
Yeah,
they used her big time.
Yeah, so
yeah,
even from the grave, she still fucked them.
yeah.
So
yeah. So I mean, I grew up steeped in that. Like, it's kind of a good segue, because I was born in 1982. My mom was a staunch pro-life activist. Yeah, holla, 82.
Damn right.
My obviously a very good vintage, eh?
Damn right.
My mom was a staunch pro-life activist. In the late 70s, my mom had gotten pregnant and had actually gone down to the States to have an abortion. She felt coerced. She felt like no one was really trying to help her with her situation.
Or...
No one was trying. Like, it was as though everybody was like, "Yep, you should just have an abortion. Yep, you should just." Yes. Yeah, an abortion's definitely the choice for you. She was like, I think 18 at the time, and she didn't know until much later. It was with my dad. They were together already. And she didn't know until much later, but I guess my dad had spoken with someone like privately while my mom was speaking with someone privately, like at this clinic. And they told my dad that there was something wrong with the baby and that it wouldn't have any bones, and made my dad really scared. And my dad kind of pressured my mom too. A long time later, my mom went and got those medical records back, and there was no record of, like, they hadn't even done an ultrasound. This is like 1978, right? Like, they hadn't anything. She was barely pregnant. So this was all a lie. Like, they basically coerced a young couple into getting an abortion because they thought that was the best choice for this young couple to make.
That's not okay.
And
yeah.
And so my mom lived with a lot of regret for that. She and my dad got married only like a year or two after that. And then also she ended up finding out that, I guess, during the procedure, they had injured her womb. They had actually perforated her womb. And years later, she had all this scarring from this that had been unknown. And this caused her to have a lot of trouble getting pregnant when she did want to have a child. And so my parents were married for 5 years before I was born, with my mom trying and having losses and stuff. So for her, this
you were
came
the
to
miracle
be
baby.
right, basically. And I'm an only. And so this came to be like something she really hung her hat on. And I say that not to make light of it, but this defined her in a huge way. And she did not want anyone else to be coerced into anything like that. She didn't want anyone to not get all the information, but she also had this sort of edgy, like androgynous 80s short haircut feminist kind of vibe to her. And she would always say, well, I'm a feminist. I do what I want. And I liked that vibe, like, as in, I don't listen to what some group of people tells me I have to do to be a feminist or a woman or whatever.
Yeah.
And so my mom had this idea that culture needed to change, that you couldn't just say people have to stop having abortions. You couldn't just say this is illegal now, that there needs to be a big shift in the culture. Because she was
Yeah.
like, well, why did I even go to a clinic? Why did I even wonder what I would do? Right? When I saw a pregnancy test, why did I even wonder? Why was it any question in my mind what I would do? Well, because of the way society is, because I was young, I lived in a small town. My family was well known in the town, and, my brother was already notorious, and my parents would be so embarrassed. And, what would we do? And my dad, like, they're still young. Probably my dad's still a bit wild and drinking and partying all the time. And, like, all of these things, right?
See,
I'm sure we can all imagine what it's like to be young and pregnant all of a sudden,
well, and
Mhm.
right?
it's everybody caring about what everybody else is gonna think. It's worrying about what the perception is. Like,
Yeah.
I know my
Yeah.
aunts, like a few of my aunts, they were married when they were 16. Like, I think
Yeah.
about that now and I'm like, "Oh my god, they were such babies." Like, they were so young and they started a
Yeah.
family so young. And now most people are
Yep.
waiting until they're in their 20s and 30s before they're actually starting families. But the fact that, you know, it's true that people are thinking too much about what other people are going to think. And that's what they're basing their opinions on. And a lot of people who do have an abortion for those reasons do regret it after, and it really bothers them.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that factored in with just like that overarching cultural idea around being a young woman with a baby, right?
Mm.
That you're dirty and slutty and
My
undesirable,
favorite.
and you must be
That's why we're
right.
married. No, I'm just
And you
kidding.
must be like, and that you must be like kind of stupid, right? And incompetent, right? Like, there's so much wrapped up
Yeah.
around that. And then and this is like, again, where we get on this border of it being difficult, because like, I'm not a socialist, but we don't have a society where it's easy for a young mom with a kid to have a job and keep up to things and take care of herself and a household and that kid and all of that stuff by themselves. And that's because we have this world that's been set up for two income families, and some of that is due to socialism and high taxes and stuff too, right? So that's all of that wrapped up.
I can push back on that. So like I guess like I do. In fact, I agree with your mom a lot. It has a lot to do with culture, because you aren't going to change people by changing laws. Laws are written by the people. So that's why we have stupid laws. Like you can't smuggle a beaver in a briefcase or some stupid shit.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
At
yeah,
really
a
do
time,
have
the
dumb
culture
laws.
thought that was wrong. But
yeah,
so I this might be a controversial opinion. I think women getting into the workplace devastated the economy. I think it completely devastated the economy.
You
it
And
shut
had
your
to
just to
make a
mouth.
say that,
fact. And I struggle, because you know what? I don't necessarily disagree, but I think it goes back even further. I think if we dig deeper, it goes back even further to industrialization, to the Industrial
Mhm.
Revolution, because we used to have primarily family related businesses, right? We
Yeah,
had, before that occurred, you would have had a trade that your family did together for the most part,
yeah,
or maybe like your mom did weaving and your dad made shoes, or was a blacksmith or whatever, right? But like, generally, we people had like family based trade type
hmm,
businesses, and women would have worked as well, right? Like basket weaving or sewing or washing, or like these kinds of work, domestic service, or that kind of thing. Or but it would have been like not on this corporate 9 to 5, gotta get a babysitter
yeah,
kind of thing, right? So your kids are here with you, like around, and it's part of life all the time that
yeah. And
you,
being around adults, like children being around adults, seeing how adults interact actually makes them develop faster.
Oh, 100%.
yep, and
100%.
the whole culture supporting that, right? So that all the adults in a neighborhood let their kids go run and play and pop back in and do a bit of chores and run out and play again or whatever. There's
Well,
Hmm.
this great book called, go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say it's even just like the whole baby talk with your kids when they're younger. Like when you're doing a lot of that baby talk, like, "Oh, you gotta go wee wee," and you know what I mean? Like,
Oh yeah, I
you know,
use real words with my kids.
exactly.
Yeah.
And like my mom had said, like with me and my sister, she didn't talk to us like we were babies. She talked to us with normal words and talked to us like we
Yeah.
were adults. Well, essentially, obviously, you know what I mean by that. But she would
Yeah.
just talk to us normally. And both me and my sister started talking really quickly. Like
So did
it didn't
I.
take us a long
Yeah.
time to talk. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
So there's this really great book called The Continuum Concept. I think it's a great read for like anybody in the world. But I read it when I became a parent. And it's by
Yourself.
this woman who lived with the Yaquana people in the Brazilian jungle in the 1970s. And some of the stuff she talks about is just amazing. The way she talks about kids, she says, like in their culture, they just sort of have an expectation that a kid will want to do what a grown up is doing. And
Mhm.
they don't have toys, they have miniatures of adult things at
Yeah.
the ready, miniatures of tools, miniatures of equipment, right? So, like a play kitchen or, like a play tool set or whatever, or a smaller broom. And she says,
Yeah.
but the other thing is the kid tries it a little bit. And she says, almost all the time, like the little ones, they try a little bit and then they quit. Like they don't finish.
Yeah.
And nobody cares because it's about this being part of your regular life.
Yeah.
And also this like, and she just sort of imparts this to you in these little stories, right? And she tells another story about how they're working on building a hut and this one guy takes a break. And she, as this like white European woman, is like, well, what's that guy doing? He's taking a break. Like, how come he's sitting down? And everybody else is like, well, okay, cool. Um, so she's like, how come he's taking a break? And everybody's like, well, because he's ready for a break. Like, just
Mhm.
because he's taking a break. Like he'll start again when he's ready to start again. Like, do you need a break? You can take a break. Like,
Yeah.
nobody's required. It's not a shift. Like if you need to sit down for a bit, go sit down and then come back. Like it's an honor system setup, right? And so that it goes back to that, right? When there's not this like constant from right when you're young, this like forced and labor is negative and contributing to your culture is negative, contributing to your group is negative, then those things are natural and normal. But
Yeah.
there's always this give and take, right? Of all of that too. And so I don't want to give all of myself to my community, just, like,
Yeah.
and that kind of circles around to that mandate idea. So anyway, growing up in this, with my mom, like some of my earliest memories are being like sitting in my stroller at protests. My mom was very active in this, right? And she got a full-time job working for a national. As soon as I put my hands like up, then my light changes a little bit. Hey, I don't understand. Anyway, she got a full-time job working for Canada's National Pro-Life Organization as running their charity and their magazine and stuff when I was still pretty young. So, and then part of what my mom advocated for was to make it easier for people to have a family and be successful. So if I had a day off school, my mom would make a point of like bringing me to work, right? To set an example of, and encouraged her staff to do the same. And so I spent time, listening to these debates. I mean, also, my dad worked out of town when I was young, and my mom ran counseling hotlines. So I would get dragged out of bed sometimes in the middle of the night to go like help some young women in crisis. And I give my mom credit because she really put her money where her mouth was on that. And really was like, yeah, I'll get up in the middle of the night and drive across town and sit in a Tim Hortons with my kid in my arms and listen to you cry for a while. Absolutely, I'm here. And so, of course, by nature, I was pro-life, right? I was raised in this, and this was what I was taught was right. So and my mom could do no wrong to me as like, in my eyes as a child. So
Yeah.
of course this is what I believed. And over time, as I got into my 20s, though, I came to have this a bit of a different belief. Like, my mom was staunchly for prohibiting abortion, period, right? Like, it shouldn't
Yeah.
be available only if the mother's going to die. My mom even would have said, and my mom was someone who had been sexually assaulted, but my mom, and I know she's like on record in a radio interview saying she was asked about rape, and her response was, "We've eliminated the death penalty for a rapist. Why should we give it to a child?" That's how she felt about it. So
And that I don't agree with.
so that one is, that's one of the really tough, polarizing ones, right? And I mean, this is the thing is, there's this, it's not quite related, but there's this guy, Dr. Sears. A lot of people know of him because he's like a famous pediatrician who gives a lot of like natural parenting advice. But he says, like, when matters are so difficult as parenting, so nuanced, so intense, you can't come to me asking me for a black and white simple answer on everything.
Yeah.
Like, that's not how it works, right? Matters of scruples are important, and they do have ample gray area. So the way I see things, when I got into my 20s, I started to have more of this idea of like, for the most part, what other people do really isn't my business. And if like everyone's at liberty and we're just all existing, like, we're like, there's no morality to the universe at large. We humans construct morality, but there isn't much morality to the universe. And I'm going to like, we can talk about religion. I'm not religious, but if we want to go into religious arguments, I can go there too, because I went to Catholic private school for many years. But
not really. Well, I guess we can on the philosophical side of it, but like, I'm not religious.
But objectively, the world, the earth, what we know of the universe doesn't have much to show us as far as morality. If anything, it shows us that it doesn't give a fuck about what's right or wrong, because things die indiscriminately. We have like weird bugs that can climb inside a child's eye and lay eggs in there and explode and render them blind all their life. Like, I mean, there's no, tidal waves and horrible illnesses and they're like,
we are
so from that perspective,
insignificant. Like, even to the world, we are insignificant. To the galaxy, we don't exist. To the universe, we are nothing.
Nothing, right? And really, I mean, being alive is the commonest thing there is. It's not really special at all, right?
Yeah,
like, talking about it's damn special.
I mean, you're special like everyone else, right?
Damn special people are ruining it for me.
So,
I know, right?
So what gave the flip from being, I guess, pro-life to being, I don't know, would it be pro-choice?
I am pro-choice. Yeah, I would call myself pro-choice. And so it's a couple things.
Not necessarily pro-abortion. I think that there's like three spectrums. Yeah, there's
so I am pro-choice. People can have choices. It's not my business to say, like, I can have morals, my own morals, and I can choose to act within them, right? But I gotta admit, like, I mean, we're from Winnipeg. If I'm walking downtown and I see a couple dudes getting into it together, that's not my fucking business.
Right? Just don't look at it. Don't look at it.
No, y'all be doing your thing, and that's not anything to do with me, right? I used to live like 2 blocks away from Teasers, and sometimes we'd go for a beer run and see bikers beating the shit out of somebody in the back lane and just like, see you later, fellas. Like, not interested. It's not you got involved with bikers, man. That's not my problem. Like, that's not for me to get involved with. I mean, if I saw somebody if there was an obvious power difference, like once I saw a guy beating a woman up on the street, I stopped to ask if they needed help. He's screaming at her. I phone 911 on the payphone, say somebody's got to come help these people, and I leave. Right? Like, that's the extent I'll get involved in other people's shit. Right? It's just not my business. So if you're like hitting a kid on the street or something, I'm gonna come get involved in that. But
I'm going to tell you though,
things,
if I see somebody like the adult things, 100%. When I see someone hurting an animal, I'm sorry, gloves come off.
Yeah, I got beef
This
with that.
girl
Yeah.
goes freaking crazy. Like,
Yeah.
you don't wanna see when
Yeah.
that what happens, but,
Oh,
um,
yeah. Yeah.
same with the kids.
That's
Like, there was actually, I had mentioned it on our podcast earlier this week or last week, that I ended up calling the cops on somebody because I seen them abusing their foster kid in a store.
oh,
So,
wow.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't hesitate on that kind of thing for sure.
Nope.
But so here's where it came down to it for me. As if I parse it out, um, my body, like when people say my body, my choice, everybody's like, what about the baby? Okay, cool. What about the baby? I'm not talking about the baby. I'm talking, so just, and I'll call it a baby. It's fine. I'll call it a baby. I don't need to call it a fetus. Or sometimes I'll call it a fetus. I don't care. I interchange. So here's the thing is I've got a body. I've got a womb. Okay. I've got that rig in there. Now, when I have an egg and there's a sperm and it gets fertilized, now there's this fertilized egg, right? Now, the part that's my body, my choice is if I choose to let this egg be in my uterus. That's the part that's my body, my choice. Now, here's the unfortunate side effect. The unfortunate, like, next thing that happens due to that is if I say no, little fertilized egg, you can't kick it up in here, it can't survive.
Yeah.
Can't survive without that growing environment. And we don't have the technology to take an already implanted embryo out of one uterus and put it in another one. Right? So that's really where the problem is. Someone would want it. That's the argument we hear all the time, right? So many people who want a baby, someone would want it, right? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I guess me being an eternal pragmatist, get going on the technology. Like pro-lifers, for what it's worth, my mom, a staunch pro-lifer, was very strongly against new reproductive technologies also.
Yeah.
Right? She didn't want people being able to implant eggs and this kind of stuff. I mean, she had big issues with the idea that you might fertilize 5 embryos and then only take 2 and the others would get tossed, right?
Yeah.
Never mind selective, what do they call it? Like to decrease how many, like if you had in vitro and then you have now like all of a sudden 5 embryos took, and then you're like, holy smokes, we have to like reduce the number of embryos here or whatever, right? So my mom was staunchly against that, as most strong pro-life advocates are, because they're concerned about the idea that you would just start making tons of, and my mom was really worried about test tube babies. And she would say, well, are these people then, like, if we're doing this, you know, what are the implications? Are they going to start just creating people and then destroying them for stem cells or research or organs or whatever? So, I mean, again, it's a Pandora's box as soon as you get into anything like this.
Yeah, it becomes a religious, playing God kind of idea.
And I have concerns
already
with
are
that
doing.
too. Right, absolutely. And I'm like, I read Brave New World. Like, I get what the concern is about that. Like, you know, for sure. So Bill Gates just bought up a bunch of stuff to make like synthetic breast milk.
Oh my God, Bill Gates. What? I'm so sick of Bill Gates, Mr. Computer
I know,
dude. Apparently
right?
running the world lately. Whether it's giving medical advice or now being pregnant, I don't freaking know. But I'm just so sick
He's
of
a
it.
weirdo. So weird.
Yeah,
right?
So, well, I was going to say, because looking at this at the information, even if I pull up, God, I can pull up any statistic, but so if we're looking at it in terms of let's say, because the big argument is for viability, and I understand that, you know, the my body, my choice. Okay, but ultimately that sperm didn't get there by magic. It was either consensual or non-consensual. So if it's consensual, okay, then you knew what was happening. Like I think a lot of this has to do with personal responsibility.
Sure, we knew the risks, but we also knew that there was a solution. So what I would ask is like, okay, it's my choice to get in a car, right? Or it's my choice to drive on the highway, right? I mean, we could go down quite a rabbit hole like that and say, well, nobody ever needs to anything. And I get worried about that with medicine, right? Because what were we hearing of, well, if you're not going to get vaccinated, now you don't have a right to use the hospital, right? Like we were hearing. an argument like this. So you knew the consequences. If you didn't want to, then you're not entitled. So
With
I think that's a
that,
bit of a slippery slope too.
with that, sorry to jump in here,
No,
but
no,
with
yeah,
that too,
yeah,
you see so many people who during the whole COVID thing, which hasn't even ended yet, but during the whole
yeah,
COVID thing, were very pro mandates, pro vaccines, da 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 da, and very against the people who were my body, my choice, like
right,
anti mandates, anti vaccines.
yeah.
And now they're all my body, my choice. Well, pick a hill, dude, because you're literally you're saying
I
on one end it's
completely agree.
okay for the government to do this and to have these mandates and dictate to you what to do.
Yeah,
Then on and it's your body, but then on this hand you're saying no. Like
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And so and the big factor is, so I'm pro-choice, but I have enough sense. I'm not stupid. I got kids. I'm a human. I exist. We
Yeah.
all fucking know that at some point, and there's not a pinpoint, it's a gray area, but at some point that's a person, right? If we're
Yeah.
like, we could, if we really parse it out, if you've got like 2 living 4-year-olds in your arms and a shit ton of fertilized embryos, who are you going to save? Burning building,
Yeah.
right? You're going to take those 2 living
Yeah.
kids, even though that's way more potential for life, right? If you've got a wall
Yeah.
full of fertilized embryos, we all know that. So I know that, like, I mean, I carried 2 babies inside of me and felt them quicken within my womb, like I know that that's a life. I know that. I know that at some point that becomes a thing capable of 80 or 90 or 100 years of living, right?
Yeah.
So if you're going to tell me that the potential, just the potential that and as you may know from past episodes, I'm a dirty, unclean, unvaccinated sicko, that I am a risk just based on the fact that I didn't get the vaccine, which doesn't prevent transmission, and blah blah blah, and I'm not sick and I don't have a symptomatic illness, and that it's worth it to segregate me to just even save one life, right? That's the big bleeding heart. If it saves even just one life, it's worth it. One 85-year-old person whose body is shutting down and they're already unable to speak and are like laying in a hospital bed all day or whatever. Not that that's like void of value. Okay. I watched my mom spend 6 weeks like fully paralyzed before she passed away as well. And there was value still to some of our interactions, but it's not the same. And etc. But when you're way past the natural life expectancy, something's going to get you eventually, right? Either your heart's going to stop or some illness is going to take you over and be too hard on you and you're going to die.
There's nothing I'm immortal. I'm never dying.
Except us, obviously, goes, like fucking Highlander, right?
Obviously.
But
right.
But so if there's this thing that has the potential for up to 80 or 90 years of life, isn't that more sacred? Really? Well, that's what the religious people would say, right? It's all this potential to be so many things, right? My mom would, what if that's the next Einstein? What if that's the next Jesus? So you have to acknowledge.
To be fair, Jesus didn't exist. Well, he may have existed, but not in the.
He's not the Son of God. Yeah, that's how I feel about it too. But you have to acknowledge the dichotomy. Well, there actually is no dichotomy, in my opinion. So the truth is, if I say that vaccines could stop prevention or stop transmission, sorry, if I believe that, which I don't, but if I were to, which is what most people on the other side of this argument believe, is that they could.
Well, that's what a vaccine is supposed to be, but it's a flu shot.
Yeah, and that's
right.
Yeah, that's
but
where
if I believe that,
I'm going to stop you with that is,
and it would make sense to segregate me. It truly would, right? If we're saying, well, we have to save any life we possibly can ever. Well, yeah, then it would follow that you'd have to segregate me, and it would also follow that you'd have to ban abortion because it's saving any life you ever can ever, any potential for any more life, right? Like I literally had people say to me, what if that person who was on death's doorstep with like 8 conditions and terminal cancer and 84 years old, what if that person could have had an extra day with their family? I'm like, well, fuck you. I don't know. I don't, life isn't fair, babes. Like, that's what I've got to say about that. Like, maybe anybody could have had an extra damn day. Like, maybe I could have not wasted so much time on my phone either.
Well, and I think And that's a big discrepancy. Like we in the West, we have become very selfish and very self-centered. In it is ultimately at the end of the day, you die alone, whether
Yeah.
you believe in God or not. You at the end of the day, you are alone.
Yeah,
As
you take
sad as
that
that
step
sounds,
all by yourself.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think with the big argument, I guess, that is being pushed is, if in terms of, if Roe v. Wade and the implications that has in Canada, I don't know what implications that has in Canada. That literally doesn't affect us, but for some reason, oh shit, she's got COVID now.
Well, yeah, but
But
everybody has to jump into everything, right? So something's going on in the States. Canada's got to have their freaking 2 cents about it. I mean,
Well,
whatever.
no, but what I'm trying to say is, so they're talking about, well, what about rape, incest, and then the physical health of the mother? Yeah, well, I'm looking at statistics
I
for
can't
it. Rape
handle
makes
water.
up
Oh.
that rape makes up 0.3% of all abortions. Incest
Yeah.
makes up 0.03%, and in order to save the mother, makes up 0.8%. So, of those extenuating circumstances, of all abortions that take place in the United States, because in Canada,
Yeah.
we don't have that information. We do not have by
No,
demographic.
we don't
We do
track
not
it.
have by class, by race, nothing. We have none of that information. So we could
Interesting.
only infer. And especially if you look at, talking about the Planned Parenthood, was Margaret Sanger was openly racist. She
Oh, yeah.
wanted to kill the minority communities. She's seen it as a form of eugenics, sterilizing women, sterilizing men, especially black men. That's why Planned Parenthood is typically in minority communities.
Yeah.
And I think it's been a compounding factor. In fact, I just seen a thing from Malcolm X. He was saying, the white liberals constantly want to try and help. And it's like the difference between how did he say it? A
He calls them
fox
like a
and a wolf.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like the wolf is after you, but the fox is sly, right?
Yeah, the fox looks cute. It looks like it's trying to help you, but at the end, that's what a liberal is like. It's like a fox, as opposed, So you're seeing, and these straw man and arguments, and that I don't think that's fair, because I'm looking at for elective. So this has to do with being too young, immature, not ready for the responsibility. Economic, doesn't want to change their life. Single mom or in a bad relationship, have too many children, doesn't know, or just doesn't want it.
Well, to
Makes
me,
up
that sounds like a lack of contraceptive.
98.3%. That's massive.
Yeah.
So, but we're going to make laws about the 1.9.
Here, I just found it for Canada.
1.7%.
But isn't that what we always do? We always make laws based on the extreme minority lately. That seems to be like the new cool thing.
Well, bad laws make bad laws, or bad laws make bad judgments.
Law. Yeah.
Yeah.
I did find it for Canada. From
you were able to by demographic.
So what I found is reasons. I found the why. And then they have some more information about what the women report. I don't see it by race demographic, no, but
yeah,
we do have a bit higher rate.
Yeah,
like rape, incest is 1%. Woman health problem is 3%. Fetus health problem is 3%.
Yeah, I was looking at that, and I think their it's like 7%. But so, of the other 33%, it is still typically, I don't want the kid. It was unplanned. So again, and those are extenuating circumstances, and I don't disagree with those. If you want to play the emotion and the sympathetic thing, absolutely, you can get people to align with that. And that's where I brought up the thing with that Facebook post was it is an appeal to emotion. This is why I do not trust Zelensky. I do not trust Democrats. I do not trust liberals. And to be fair, I don't trust a lot of conservatives either. When it is a play to your emotion, because emotions make you do terrible things. When you feel bad for someone, that knee jerk. So
that's why I try to come at it objectively, right?
And so that's where, and if we do want to have that discussion of, okay, well, I think there should be some form of a limitation. Like, I
Yes.
don't think, the famous thing from the Georgia ex-governor saying, they'll birth the baby and we'll keep the baby warm and we'll have a discussion with the mother and the father, or whether we'll resuscitate the baby and we'll have a discussion about what to do. This is post-birth. So at what point do we start to draw that line? And I made a ridiculous comparison about, well, if it's now outside the womb, would that not be murder? Like,
Well,
if I shot and killed you, I would be charged with double homicide.
That's what I'm saying.
Absolutely, but here's another thing at play is infant death. Like, for example, we had really inflated statistics about babies dying from being lain on top of by accident.
Oh, I was terrified of that.
Because actually, biologically, it's nearly impossible for a non-intoxicated adult to ever overlay a child, because we're biologically designed not to do that, because we would have had our babies like right with us to protect them from predators out in the jungle and shit. But people used to kill their babies. People used to smother brand new babies and then say, whoopsie, we rolled over on him in the night and he died, because they could not afford or handle or be able to manage another. Imagine being like a woman in the 1940s in a shitty neighborhood with a drunk asshole of a husband, and you can't get any contraception, and you've got 14 children already, and you're like totally exhausted, you're malnourished, and
I'm sure they had firehouses at the time. You just put it in a basket, bring it to the firehouse, ding dong, and run away. Ding dong dish.
But I mean, so there were overlayings, right? I think also when your world is really desperate, like if you live in really terrible conditions, you get to a point where you're like, it's just better. Like this poor thing, this poor thing. I could just, it's like mercy from a mother, or like a gerbil eating two babies or whatever, right? Like, I don't know, the world's fucked up.
Well, and that's still that it's a play to emotion. Yeah, does that happen? Absolutely. I
don't mean it as a play to emotion. I mean it as a practicality, right? If you badly enough don't want a baby, you'll find some way to not have a baby. And it might not be the best way, the way that like the bleeding heart people who want to think about it as a flowery, happy thing, it might not be the way that they would use to not have a baby now.
Well, it's like what we talked about in our last podcast, sorry, Tyler, about that woman from Winnipeg who literally had a bunch of babies in a storage container, dead babies. Like, but at what point do you consider it an abortion, or what point do you consider it murder? Like, I feel like when a baby is born and it's breathing on its own, to then take a life, that to me is too far. That's too far.
Absolutely. Sure. Absolutely. I would agree. And I actually feel similar, that viability is a pretty good mark. From a religious perspective, and I won't go too deep into it, but in the Bible, there's a lot of talk about breathing the soul into the body. Mm-hmm. So in the Bible, when God makes Adam, it talks about how he makes him first, molds him out of clay, and then breathes a soul into him. Okay. There are other passages where they talk about how a baby gets a soul when it comes out and breathes. And when we look at actual scientific information about the way fetuses develop and when labor is triggered, we now know, in the past 10 years we learned this, that when the baby's lungs are developed enough, when their alveoli are developed enough, they release enzymes that pass through the placenta and travel to the woman's brain and initiate the steps that begin the labor process. So basically, anytime you deliver a baby earlier than it naturally initiates labor, you're running a really high risk that they're going to have breathing problems, because this is a function that occurs. And the problem with very premature babies is that these alveoli inside of their lungs are not developed enough. we don't have blood in our lungs at all in utero. When we are born, those chambers change and shift, and then we are able to circulate blood through our lungs and breathe. So to me, probably it's somewhere around there, around that point, like where, and I don't mean like, oh, my lungs are all the way developed, but that viability is about those lungs. That age of viability is really about that. Can we get oxygen into you? Because nothing lives without oxygen, right? So
and I think that's where and I think this is where the difference of being pro-choice, and and I haven't heard a convincing argument, and I would love to hear this, but the convincing argument is, well, it's about viability. Well, on the left, they you see some people are saying some things to the effect of, well, like, when is a baby, an unborn fetus, considered alive? And they say, I don't know, sometime after birth. Up until that point, they're seen as just a collection of cells. Well, to be fair, if you want to get to the philosophical perspective, we are just a collection of cells. So, like, you can make that logical fallacy, or at least take that logical step that, well, if I kill my kids now, well, what's the difference? I'm just reassembling the cells.
The thing is, there is no difference. There is no moral arbiter beyond us, beyond our own social mores, beyond what we like believe in our heart or say as a society. That's the truth. That's what makes it really freaking hard to be people on the earth and get the heck along, because there is no like big thing being like, and this is the rule. Like, I mean, for each religious group, they have some big thing that says this is the rule or whatever. And then even then they don't agree always within the same sects or that kind of thing. But what's a good analogy is, so we're like populated with shit tons of bacteria, right? Microbiome, you've got more bacterial cells in you than your own cells.
Yeah.
Your body, actually. So if you get sick and you take antibiotics, you know that it's killing some good cells and some bad cells. Bacteria, sorry, not cells. It's killing some good ones too, by rote, right?
Does it all.
But do you care? Not much, because you're sick.
No.
Or are you even given the luxury of caring? If you're sick enough, right? Like for me, I wouldn't take antibiotics unless I was like on death's doorstep, for me personally.
Yeah.
But
I can still hear. I'm just grabbing a notebook.
But like, so if I'm sick enough, no, I'm not going to give a shit what that's doing to any of my good bacteria, because I need to not be sick anymore. I need to get well, right? And so, as my good friend Lisa used to say, you have to get through right now before you can get through later. So, if you're super duper sick and you're worried about your gut microbiome, you're not going to have any microbiome if you're dead. So, there's a trade-off, right? Like there's a certain point where, well, I have to do this because I don't have another choice. So similarly, the earth, the universe, whatever we want to call it, doesn't give any fucks about us when it like mounts a big tidal wave or a hurricane or whatever. Like it just doesn't, like these things happen and there's no morality to it. On the greater scale of the entire universe, all the things out there, us, this tiny little itty bitty thing that doesn't matter. Like we were saying before we started recording, like we're a speck, just the same way that bacteria in our gut is a speck to us. We're,
See,
and we can have a moral idea for ourselves, but it doesn't mean that we can lay it upon everybody else all over the place, at least not necessarily like with a law or a punishment or whatever. And that, again, it doesn't make it easy, because if I see you hurting somebody, maybe I want to intervene, and maybe I'm not strong enough. I wouldn't be able to stop you from doing pretty much anything. I'm 5'2". I am very small. I would not stand a chance, right? Like you could like literally probably pick me up with one hand. So there's not much I could do, which is then where I would appeal to someone else, right? I morally don't think he should be doing this to this person, but I am unable to stop him, and someone should. And that, like, there's the crux of it, right? That's like for everything ever is like, well, I can't stop other people, but somebody should.
Well, I was listening to Oh my God. I was listening to Douglas Murray. I was listening to him talk. And he brought up I've thought of this. I've thought of this before, but he kind of put it in a different light of we benefit from a Judeo-Christian centered ideology. And he said, you have to accept that. You have to accept that you get your morality, whether you believe in the Bible or not. You get your morality from a Christian-based society. And because there are, to us, if we went and grabbed a baby and stuffed it underwater and watched it drown, we would be absolutely
Monsters.
devastated. We would hate to see that. But there are cultures, honor killing is a real thing. That has been a problem in Canada. Sharia law is a problem because they literally inject their own morality and beliefs inside a fundamentally Christian society. And I get it. I'm an atheist. I do not believe in God as a superpower, but I understand the teachings of it and the importance that plays in where my moral compass comes from.
Sure. Could you eat a horse or a dog?
Nope.
I could eat a horse before I'd eat a dog.
Right. And to some people, they're like, yeah, I'll fucking rock a dog any day, right? Like,
yeah.
Then they won't eat a cow, but a cow is something that's
exactly
because our staples.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's where there's on the pro-abortion side, it has more from the libertarian, the traditional libertarian, which I struggle with because I hear listening to like Malcolm X or Thomas Sowell or any like Stephen Crowder talk about liberals, or even Jimmy Dore, he's a leftist. He is by all definite, he is a leftist. Or maybe I shouldn't say leftist. He is more socialist. He's a Bernie Sanders supporter, hated Trump, all this type of stuff.
But the left is moving. Left is moving, right is moving, center's moving, right? Like left is going further and further left, which means if you were center before, now you look right.
Well, we were literally talking about that in one of our podcasts because we've taken the political compass before. And I've taken it a few times just in case, maybe I answered something differently or whatever, or wrong.
Yeah.
So I've taken it a few times, and both of us lean more to the left. I'm more closer to the center, and Tyler is actually more to the left than I am. But with the way that society is gone right now, I'm literally like, what's the word I'm looking for? Huh? Like,
I don't know.
I can't say I identify, but
motions first to guess the word.
I agree more with a lot of the people on the right. Agree is not the word I'm looking for either.
You know why? Because you're actually moderate. Both of you are moderate. You're open to other ideas, right? You're willing to like roll up your sleeves and get in the gray area without feeling threatened by it.
Which I'm more so than him, which is probably why I'm closer to the center in the.
Well, I think we're doing okay.
Well, no, because like even like if we compared when we did do the political compass test, so it's authoritarian, libertarian, and then
left, right,
right, left. Yeah. So I'm more left and actually more libertarian, significantly more libertarian than say Kim. And like I've brought this up that Getter, cool. Getter's cool. I have no problem with Getter. I have no problem with Rumble. I have no problem with Gab. All these social places, but I don't want, I actively do not want to be in an echo chamber. That is why, on Facebook or on Twitter, I will challenge because I want to be proven wrong and I want to learn. And unfortunately, the left has taken the position of, hard echo chambers. That's
Socrates, really. Challenge yourself over and over and over again, right? The more you test your hypothesis, the more you'll prove that you're right if you really are.
Yeah.
Right? and the more that you'll eventually see that you were wrong and be able to then adjust your objective belief with your information, right?
Well, and so that's where, like, I used to be very, like, we've had to deal with abortions for, I fall into that 98% that me and my ex came to that decision that, hey, we cannot afford it. And call me a piece of shit. But I understand that situation. That is the majority of why people did. It wasn't, 3, 6, 9 months down the road. It was 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
it
absolutely.
was,
no, and I get that too. Yeah.
See, before we get oh, sorry, I'll let you finish and then I'll jump in.
I don't remember what I was going to say now.
The abortion thing, and you get it. You understand why they can't afford it.
Yeah, and so I was a lot more. I wouldn't say pro-choice. I would say pro. Not. I think it'd be fair to say pro-abortion. That if you did, obviously there's a reason. But the more and more educated, like I said, I'm traditionally not right, and actually I can make this point too. Well, if you look at, there was that photo that Elon Musk had taken. The in the center, like he's in the center, and then the right or the left, and then the right, and then it shows a couple years later how the left has slingshot off, and he's now considered more right, and then the left has gone way over, and the center has like moved like way over to them. So, and this is the idea of the Overton window of, especially on Twitter, is left dominated, and
100%.
Yeah.
and even in terms of, like, I did there's a website where you can look at the people that you engage with on Twitter, and that kind of affiliates like your consumption. So typically, and I guess for Kim, like when you were saying, I guess about well, I guess the banner of conservative has that circus tent has expanded, very much like how the LGBT community. Okay, well, first it was I think high numbers is like 1.8%. Well, if you keep expanding that umbrella, you add in a bunch of other letters. Well, naturally, it's just like the autism thing. Well, if you change how autism is detected, or the criteria for it, of course that's going to change. So I don't think that it's, and everyone makes the thing that or the analogy of, I didn't leave the left left me.
Yeah.
I'm still here, but I'm turning my camera off for a minute because I'm going to relocate, and I don't want you to have the bounce.
Okay.
Me milling around through my house.
But
Kim, you were going to tell us something. You were like, before we get too far, and you were
right. We might actually be too far already.
I think we're too far. I was like, we're pretty far.
I know there was a few times I wanted to jump in, but okay. So just a couple of things. I guess for abortion, for me, when I think it's too far is when if the mother were to die by unfortunate scene circumstances and the baby can survive on its own, it's too far. I think at that point, abortion should not be legal unless it's for health reasons. For people using it as contraceptives, and the whole afterbirth thing, to me is no. I think it's completely morally wrong, and to me, it's no better than or no different than that lady in Winnipeg who had a freaking storage container full of babies. It's no different.
Well, here's my one question though.
Mm-hmm.
What if, let's say, someone was like, okay, by that logic, and this is occurring to me real time right now. But what if, well, it's not quite. I was about to say that, and I'm like, no, I am forming this thought right now. So I don't know if I'm being the devil's advocate or not. It's happening now. But what if someone was like, okay, so I'm knocked up, and I don't want to keep this baby, and I don't want to be pregnant. And I'm thinking about like that Transcona chick who doesn't have a curfew.
And there's so many in
T-Town. School very much like that. And I get to say that because I grew up in Transcona.
Me too.
So I get to say that because I am Transcona trash. But you
But
know the girl I'm
Transgender
talking
girls,
about,
baby.
well,
right?
100%, it's 90%
Now,
of transcona girls.
she's right, and she's knocked up when she's 14 or whatever. Now where do we go if we say, okay, there's this age of viability where this fetus could, this baby, whatever we're calling it, could survive on its own or survive with a lot of help, right? Because I mean, we can take a 21-week baby and keep them alive, right?
Mhm.
We could do that. So what if women start saying, I want to get induced and get this baby out of me. I want a C-section. I want this baby out of me at 22 weeks and someone can have it.
I don't see a problem with that. I
No,
don't see a problem with
I'd
that
be
at all.
okay with that
But what
personally.
about the effect on the infant? Because I mean, this is lifelong health problems for, I mean, I know two people who are adults now who were born in the 80s like us, who were preemies, and we're talking babies that were like maybe 32 weeks, right? Like, because we've advanced a lot in what we can do with premature babies.
Yeah.
But these people have ongoing health problems, particularly respiratory problems. I mean, I know a person who has two preemies that are the same age as my kids, so like 12 and 9 now, and their kids still have health problems and still have to have ongoing health care, lots and lots of specialist appointments and things like that. So I mean, what do we say then, you know, as a taxpayer in a country with socialized healthcare?
I mean, for me,
It's just,
okay,
you know,
it might like people aren't. Not everybody's gonna agree with me, but I mean, the thing is, like, if there was that choice of either I'm going to kill this child by via abortion, or I'm going to try to give birth to this child right now, and hopefully it'll have a better life or have somewhat of a life. I I would choose the somewhat of a life, like trying to, but
Well, see,
it's a hard
and that
one. Like when you're talking like okay, severe
like if it's
handicap stuff
severe
like that.
deformities, you know
If
they're gonna suffer.
yeah, if the child is going to suffer badly, then no. Like, I see, and that's the thing too. Like with abortions, like if you know, like sometimes, like especially with our medical, um, whatever has progressed so much that they can literally do tests and stuff like that on your baby and find out if your baby is going to have said disease or said um,
and it's not all that effective
disabilities.
either, is the trouble with some of these. Like, I'm really torn about that stuff. I chose not to have amniocentesis when I was pregnant with my kids,
Mm.
and partly because I didn't want to have to find out what I would want to do if
Yeah,
I didn't want to go through, like, I just didn't. So I was like, you know what, then don't put that decision in front of yourself,
Well,
right?
but
yeah.
you had already
You
made
don't
the
have
decision
to
to
put
keep it
yourself.
though. Like,
Sure, but it, you know,
uh,
some people are like, oh, well, I wanted to find out if we were going to have a Down syndrome baby so we could be prepared, for example,
yeah.
right? But I was like, I
Yeah.
don't know that that would help me. Like, that's not, you know, that's for me personally, they wouldn't help me to deal with that situation, right? So I was like, well, then that's a pretty good, clear sign that you don't need that information ahead of time. And then you don't ever have to, you
See,
know,
I
think about
think,
any of that.
but like when you actually look at statistics and stuff, like I think a lot of people, and myself included, before this whole Roe v. Wade thing even popped up, I didn't know the actual statistics and people who got abortions, like what their reasoning behind it was. Now, I
Yeah.
thought that the statistics for rape, incest, health issues or whatever were much higher than they actually are. So now finding out that it's literally under 10% of the people who get abortions it, or actually have health issues or they got pregnant for um, forcefully, stuff like that, that it's 90% of people who are using it more so as a contraceptive. And it's okay, yes, there is the situations where it could be money wise, it could be, I can't even say health because that falls within the 10%. So it could be money,
With
it could be a situation, it could be that I just don't want to. And you have like when you have people on TikTok that are literally who's pregnant and having a party because they're killing it and that's what they're posting places and stuff like that. It's
Yeah,
so disgusting that
that's weird.
those people should just be
So
like, "Ugh, adult shaking syndrome, 100%." But I think that's the thing. Like, if it, there are certain reasons where I can understand. Like, I really can, and I can have sympathy and I can have empathy for the person who would decide to, okay, we got to do this. The thing is, when you have people that are literally flaunting it all over the place, like, to be fair, I think this is the second time ever that I've heard Tyler mention this. I don't ever see him jumping around being like, "Yeah, we did this or we had to do this," like, because we just didn't want it. Da, 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 da. There were reasons behind it. You know what I mean? Like, and he's not flaunting it and
mhm,
he's not proud of
mhm.
it and like not jumping up and
For,
down and having a
for what it's
fucking
worth,
party.
I had an abortion. I had an abortion after I had 2 kids. To tell you the truth,
Well,
and
well
I.
oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say I think that's where this big discrepancy is coming from. When okay, so what? So it's abstinence, contraception, adoption, and parenthood. Those are kind of the 4
Interesting.
choices. That's what abstinence is.
Abstinence.
Oh.
Yeah, that's what they want you to do.
And so that's typically the pro-life position is okay. Well, we accept those 4. The only one that we don't accept is abortion. That's it. So outside of everything else, and I think a lot of people get mixed up and they just say, similar to your argument is, well, it wasn't an immaculate conception. Like something happened. It's not.
So let me tell you though. I want to tell you why. When I had an abortion, so I got divorced when in 2016. I split up with my ex. Okay, and then I didn't really want to date, but we hadn't been having sex for a while, so I kind of wanted to, get down,
please.
have fun. So I actually I met this guy, and I want you to know, I'm not a liar. This truly happened. I met this guy, and we would hang out a bit, and he was not that much older than me. He was only, I think, like maybe 42, 43, but he was already having problems with erectile dysfunction. And he just wanted to please me. And that's it. So this was a wonderful arrangement for me, right? I'm like newly divorced, just want someone to get me off. It's great. He was very good at it.
Clam bit.
Excellent situation. Yes, absolutely. So lo and behold, though, one day this guy gets a hard on. And I was like, obviously, if this guy has a hard on, I'm gonna take care of him, right? Like,
fucking jump on that shit.
Looking after me. But I knew I was ovulating. And I was like, I'm not putting on a condom, I'm not fucking around. I'm just giving this guy a blowjob. I am not kidding you. I gave this guy a blowjob. I shot his load on his own stomach. And I got knocked up. I only had that one event. I got knocked up from like having his sperm on my hand or on my sheets or something and getting it on myself. I got knocked up, and I am not bullshitting you. Like, I did not have any intercourse. There was no dick came near me in that manner.
That's like for urban legend
2 weeks before and 2 weeks after. Like, and I went and saw like I went straight to an obstetrician. Like, I didn't go to a clinic or whatever, but she has like routine clinic days where she performs abortions. And she was like, I told her, and she didn't seem all that surprised. And I was like, I'm not lying. And she's like, I know, I see 2 or 3 of you a month.
Oh my God.
Really?
She did not bat an eye. She was like, yep, it happens. Like, she was like, sperm are made to do one thing. Like, you get one near you, you're ovulating. Like, it only takes one, and everything's rigged to give that sperm a super good chance when you're ovulating, right? So, I mean, it happens. And it's interesting talking about the numbers. The other day I ran the numbers because someone in the US made a comment to me on Twitter and said, well, there are 350,000 abortions a year. Okay.
Ooh, that's a
So
big number.
it feels like it, but hang on. So here's what I wanted to do. I thought to myself, okay, let's imagine. First, I thought, how many people are of childbearing age in the United States? The numbers seem a bit different year by year, but it's between 45 million and 49 million. Somewhere in between there, it seems to be over the past few years of average. Okay, so that's how many women of childbearing age there are. Okay, so if you have 350,000 abortions a year, that's less than 1% of the amount of in total of childbearing age. Now, obviously, not all those people are trying to prevent pregnancy, right? So what I did is I went and looked up how many women in the US or couples, how many couples and women. It looks like it's about 65 to 70% of people are trying to prevent pregnancy in some way or other. Okay. So when we take that and bring it down, I don't have the exact numbers. My phone's dead and it's like ages ago on Twitter because I'm on Twitter way too fucking much. But anyway, when we take that and look at it, okay, so the best birth control, the most effective birth control is 99%, right? And that's like IUD, birth control pill, even sterilization, and that's used correctly. So I was like, okay, let's just say everybody's got that. Everybody's got the 99% effective. That means one person out of 100 will get pregnant in 1 year of having sex. That's what 99% effective means. So I'm like, 350,000 represents 35 million, right? That's your 1% of 35 million is the 350,000. So it's actually like less because it's about 65 to 70% of people who are trying to prevent. So realistically, the number of abortions happening in the United States is lower than the failure rate of the best birth control there is, meaning even people who have breakthrough contraceptive failure still, for a large number, probably about 35% from what I can see of people who have unexpected pregnancies still end up keeping them. But about 65% of people who have unexpected pregnancies break through birth control. If theoretically everybody's using 99% effective birth control, it's still under the number of everybody of childbearing age who wants to prevent pregnancy using 99% effective birth control. They're still having fewer abortions than that in the United States right now.
Well, I guess unfortunately, like the it
was a new way for me to think about it too, because I was like, "Oh, 350K, that feels big." Anyway, sorry, Tyler.
Well, but because the numbers that I was seeing was 1.1 million per year.
Okay, even still, it wouldn't be that big of a number then.
Well,
so that's, but
it's but considering condoms are 70% effective, right? Because that's what you hear a lot. Oh, wrap it up. Condoms are out there. You can get condoms at the clinic, right? Or whatever. Pick up a pack of condoms. Condoms are 70% effective, which means 30 people out of 100 using condoms for 1 year will get pregnant.
Well, and I think, and that's where, the pro-life argument comes in is, okay, well, then, you have sex until, in wedlock. And even though I'm looking at these numbers, that's from Women's Health, and it's showing nearly 40%. It's actually 39% of people that have abortions are white, 25 are black, Hispanic is 6, Asian or anyone from the Orient is about 3, and other is other is about 3%.
Damn white people.
All right, 39. 39 is white, 28 is black. Sorry, Hispanic is white, and people from the Orient is 6, and then everyone else is about 3%. So I've seen actually abortion rates, I guess, in terms of for minorities as at a disproportionately high rate compared to their demographic. Like obviously Caucasian is the overwhelming majority. It's like something like 70 or 80% of the population is Caucasian, and then the rest is other minorities, Aboriginal or Black or And so
Canada has 78.5% white population. I looked that up just the other day.
Yeah,
Really?
so
I actually figured it was less than that. I'm not gonna lie.
I know. I was a little
well,
surprised
yeah.
too. It was after people were commenting about polyamorous rallies and being like, "Oh, it's all white people." Well, fucking 80% of us are white people. So
Look at the yeah, and well, that could be a completely different topic in terms of, you know, um, oh my God, what the hell is that thing called? Affirmative action and, but
all that,
but
yeah,
you're in terms of single mothers and things like that, you do see a disproportionate amount of single mothers, and that's where talking with regards to your mom is changing the culture. You have to change the
yeah,
culture in order to actually affect change. You can't just say, well, we're going to create laws, and you cannot legislate morality. You cannot do it. That is a cultural thing. And so we're seeing more and more that people are, and I was going to say, unfortunately, you're seeing more and more over the past couple years, abortion rates have jumped like significant amounts. Not like, maybe another extra 50. It's jumped up like, I don't have the numbers in front of me right now, but it was something to the effect of, say, if there was, I think it went from something like 100 to 2,000 from year over year. Like, that is a significant jump. And I
yeah.
understand in the grand scheme of things, like, that's not a lot, but there is a shift.
No, percent
Something
wise, it's a
shifted.
big, yeah.
Yeah, so go from 100. That's what, 1,000% increase, 2,000% increase,
That's a big one.
200%. No, 2,000% increase. That's a massive spike.
Yeah.
So my bigger question is always, what's causing that? Is it the my body, my choice thing, or is it more women getting into, is it this third wave feminism that is saying, don't have kids, go to work, make as much money as men, and or that type of thing,
Well,
or is it?
you get me in mind of something. I read an article, this is quite a while ago, and it was actually about patriarchy, but in a positive way. It was like the things that patriarchy brings to society.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't mean the shittiness of what we call patriarchy now, but like the true meaning of men believing that they give value to the world by helping secure things, assets for their family that will provide for them in a longer term. And circling back even to that book I was telling you about the woman living in the jungle with the Yukwana people, the men garden, and it's important to them that the men do the gardening, and it's part of how they like feel that they really contribute to their community and their families is by taking care of these gardens,
We've done that for centuries. Men have gone to war. We've fought to protect our women, and we men traditionally, I know Jordan Peterson has brought this up, but if you want to talk about in terms of equality, well, 99% of workplace accidents are from men. So,
yeah. Oh yeah. Men work more dangerous jobs. And so this idea that there's not much motivation for men to want to have children because men are discouraged from doing the things that make them feel like that relate back and give them this reward feed and goodness of being a parent and growing something for that child that they can pass along and having a sense of legacy, and not in the way that these are bad words. In the way that this is like an integral part of how men function. And again, look, there are always outliers. I'm a woman who works in the building industry and I swear a lot, and like these kinds of things. There are always outliers. I'm cool with that. I'm cool with sometimes, being masculine, and with men sometimes not being into doing these kinds of things too. Like, it's cool to be unique and different, and that's fine. And I don't want you to have to like have surgery or take hormones. I want you to just be yourself, and I'll just be cool with that. And it's just like go Star Trek TNG here, and just like everybody be cool with everybody being how they are, and it's fine. But
not new Star Trek. Don't look at the new Star Trek. Holy fuck, have they
I
fucked up
specified
Picard?
TNG. I specified.
Way to make one of the most iconic characters of the Star Trek franchise look like an inept, bumbling fool,
Billy,
belittled,
I haven't
demeaned by
watched
women.
at all.
What a fucking embarrassment. It's all about women, and, women can do no wrong. It's the Mary Sue. And they make Picard look like he's old, but they make him look inept.
Mm.
And it's
I don't like
sad
that.
to see.
Yeah.
Yeah. You see it more and more with today's media, but that's
like
a
Captain
different topic. But
Next Generation was the only one I actually liked.
It's interesting to me too, because I think there's an aspect of that like factor of taking care that comes for women too, but in different ways, right? Like, more traditionally women create like individual objects, right? Like weaving and sewing and like more of that kind of stuff for the community, and this like these like knitting and beadworking and stuff, right? That these are also right, and these like exactly these items that become heirlooms, right? That become like valuable to the family, that are made specially for people with care, right? And I took great pride. Like I just made my son a blanket, and I took so much pride in doing that for him, and in seeing him appreciate it, and knowing that he can have that for a really long time, like all his life, right? More pride than I realize I'll have when I do those things.
Yeah, and I don't fault women for that. And I know we're kind of off topic with regards to the abortion thing, but and I think with the third wave feminism that's coming on is I find it interesting that the ultimate thing for a woman to be liberated is to be a man. So you almost discredit your own movement by saying the only way for me to succeed is to be as good as a man. Well, unfortunately, you're never going to be the best of a man. Men are smarter and dumber than women.
I'm glad.
On average, the smartest men are the smartest people are men, and the dumbest people are men. Women are more in that central area, and I understand both are roles. Like I'm a perfect example of it. I work a lot in order to ensure that my family doesn't starve. I will be the one to go to war so that they don't have to. I will lay down, and most men will do that. But it's become toxic. It's become dangerous.
Right. And it seems like in today's society, one of the only outlets men have for that is to work, is to become workaholics. Yeah. That's the only one that's acceptable, right? Because like, other than that, you're not you're bad if you amass property. Everybody, like, I don't know, I see people hate on landlords on the internet, or this kind of thing. Like, and I'm kind of like, well, I don't know, own a house for a while and then come talk to me about whether or not you think landlords are all assholes, like you don't have to do any of the maintenance when you rent. Like, that's just the truth, right? It's like everything is just phone somebody to fix it, right? So yeah, there are some shitty landlords. I've had them too, but right, like, it's you're the one, right? You've got to mow that lawn, you've got to get that water meter read, you've got to pay the taxes, like it's all on you, right?
It's about responsibility. And I think a lot of people, just to get back, even to tie it in back to the abortion thing, I think a lot of it has to do with people do not take the responsibility of, I did something happened here. It didn't just fall out of the sky. God didn't take pride.
We're not supposed to compete. We're not supposed to get first place. Well, like everybody gets a ribbon. Medals. Everybody gets a bow. We're not counting points. This kind of stuff.
Everybody seems...
And then it means... Yes.
Sorry, everybody seems
also into this.
I know. Everybody seems to have that easy way out button. The whole Staples, like, that was easy.
Yeah.
Like, okay, well, you're not gonna fail elementary school because we're just gonna push you along. You're not actually gonna fail. It's fine. We'll just push you along. And then
they don't want to put in the extra to help either.
Well, no.
Right.
Then it's like anything you do, it's got an easy way out button. So you don't have to take responsibility for your actions. You don't have to take any sort of accountability. It's just, oh, okay, well, I fucked up, so where's my easy way out button? And you push the button and away you go. Now the thing is, like,
Right.
for me too, like with talking about the abortion and whatever, like, okay, if like what you said earlier, like if a baby can survive outside of the womb without the mother at 21 weeks old, that's 21 weeks. That mother has had that baby inside of them that they have been able to make that choice
Yeah.
beforehand. That is
Yeah. Well, 19,
21
but yeah.
weeks. So,
Yeah.
or before that. So, I mean,
Right.
that is
Because
a
they
really
count them
long
from 2 weeks
time
before, but yeah.
to
Yeah.
be able to make that decision to, okay, I'm not going to have this child or I am going to have this child. Now, I know before I start getting attacked by whoever, I know there are those situations out there where you do have those people who get pregnant and all of a sudden they're like 9 months pregnant and they didn't even know they were pregnant, because sometimes that happens. Yes, there are the anomalies. There are the circumstances that do happen. I'm not talking about those circumstances. Those circumstances are different. They're special. And yes,
But
they should be able
again, we don't make laws. We shouldn't make laws on that. We should never make
exactly.
laws on the extremity, on the
Yeah.
absolute limits, because then you make ridiculous shit for everyone.
Yeah.
I think a big
That's where the
factor
up
with
to and
this,
including birth.
yeah,
Oh, that
yeah,
including birth, I can't
that
even.
is difficult. Yeah, that is difficult. I think though the big factor is when you're making legislation, when you're making law, it's really difficult because what they're in a way saying is that like I know a woman who was like already like 28 weeks along and was like really on death's doorstep, as was this baby inside her that she very much wanted, right?
Mm.
And she had to be like induced and give birth to her baby who could not survive.
That's hard.
Mm.
No shot whatsoever at all, who was also like slowly killing her, right? Horrible, horrible thing.
Yeah.
But this is where that doctor, without a law like this, that doctor is not protected from inducing that labor because the baby is not viable for survival. You know what I mean? Like, or let's say they figured this out at 18 weeks or 22 weeks or whatever kind of thing, or because it's 28 weeks, it's possible to be viable. So now the doctor can't induce this labor on this infant who is
Mhm.
not being born on its own, but is not going to survive. So I don't disagree with you that I have trouble with this wording of up to and including birth. I also cannot, like, I don't believe there is any case. I would try to look it up, and I maybe will. Like, I don't think that it's ever been done in Canada just for the heck of it
I
at
hope not.
that point.
I really hope.
I like it's the wording is difficult, and it's to protect the healthcare provider because the big factor is you don't have much time a lot of the time with these things, right? Like if you're in a situation where the mother's life is at risk, this isn't like you can be all like, let's have a big long talk, you know? And
Well,
in that way
and
too, it's
unfortunately in
really
Canada,
difficult
we
for
do
the
not
care
have that
provider
choice.
because otherwise the care provider is going to be charged with murder under these laws that a lot of people
Well,
propose.
and I think that's where, if we're okay, well, we don't have any statistics on why. Like, we can't even ask why. If finding demographics is so, like I said, I've scoured. I don't see anything for exact
The
demographics.
bottom line is don't want a baby. And what that means is this world around me is not conducive to me having a baby. Because the truth is no one, even if they're using it as quote unquote birth control, no one goes in there like in that real moment where that's really happening. No one is taking that lightly. Like you can make light
I
of
disagree.
something for a time, but I'm talking when you go in somewhere and they're giving you, like, you're in a gown, you've had to change, they're giving you medicine under your tongue, they're putting IVs in your arm, they're giving you fucking fentanyl and morphine and shit. You've not eaten, You are
Horse
nervous.
medicine?
You're all by yourself. You are like very exposed. You're in full on like stirrups, not just like bent knees, but like fully beetle, like knees up to your chest. They're like blood pressure monitors on you and stuff. Like this is not something that just is like a quick little thing that happens. You afterwards have to stay and be monitored, and you can't take yourself home. Like it's not easy breezy, not by a long shot. Like you can make light of it all you want leading up to it, and that is why sometimes women stop and leave and don't go through with it, right? Because like this is a desperate choice. We have a world that is awful, and thus people are then forced to make awful choices. So in a beautiful world, I'm hardcore pro-life. In a beautiful, lovely world where we live in like communities that are underneath that, whatever that frickin' number is that I always forget the name of, Newton's number or something, maybe not. It's about the 150 like family units or individuals or whatever in a community before they start getting crazy. So if everybody has their little like healthy communities and they live together and they work together and they occasionally branch off a new one, you know, like how do rate communities do voluntarily, then and everybody can function and you're happy to have babies because you have community support and you know that you'll be taken care of and everything's cool. And so then it doesn't cross your mind of like, no, I don't want to do this, right? Because you don't feel like you're going to be let down and terrified and struggling and in strife all the time. I don't know. Like I've fucking stolen shoes for my kids, you know, to take care of them, you know, like I've had grocery carts full and had to leave it. I've had my card declined like unexpectedly and with my children and had to leave my groceries in the store and go. I've been really fucking poor. Like after I got my ex-husband ditched me, I hadn't worked like in 6 years. I'd been at home with my kids and he flipped his top and took off and left me like with a house and bills and kids to take care of who didn't go to school. And you know, I've been really poor. Like I know what it means to be like literally I don't know if I'll be able to feed these two kids I have, and now I'm fucking knocked up unexpectedly, like when I just gave some dude a handy in the bedroom.
That's so weird. That is so crazy to me.
Like legit. So you know, and for what it's worth, also
Dunbar's number.
Yes, thank you. That's the Dunbar's number. But for if you go get an abortion, they also like before they arrange the abortion, they make you talk about birth control and make a plan for birth control. Like it's not like all those doctors are like, yeah. So what are you going to do for birth control? Because this is a serious medical procedure, and you can't just do this over and over again. So what's your birth control plan?
Yeah, well, and then unfortunately, there are some, you know, like there was that cake that said, it's a boy, and then the Y was crossed out and it said ordered.
Yeah.
Like,
so,
you know, or, you know, people having abortion parties and stuff. And that's where, you know, like, okay, we've fucked up somewhere as a culture when, you know, it's one thing to be supportive.
Yeah, absolutely.
At the end of the day, when you go, oh yeah, like, you know, I was talking to a friend of mine, and he said, like, a guy that he knows, his wife, that is their contraception. He gets knocked up. All right, make a phone call to 100%. I'm like, that's like that is, and there are, you know, there are people like women that have protested ever since this Roe V Wade thing was passed. Was, you know, holding signs. I had 3 babies and I aborted 3 babies.
Oh my God.
No,
like that's a freaking medal.
Or they have shirts. Like a lady had a shirt and it was like,
you know,
yeah, it was like notches on a belt or on a bedpost of how many abortions I had. So that is the extreme. But if that's all that's allowed to be pushed, very much like, you know, the transgender thing for children. Okay, well, if that's the only thing that you're allowed to discuss, and abortion is perfectly good, and you know, why get a condom? Why to have any type of any responsibility? Why? No, No, don't have no responsibility. Give that to someone else. You're perfect. Here's your participation trophy. At number 10, you get an abortion for free.
Oh my God. Yeah, they got a freaking punch card. I'm like, how many is there? We'll be
Yeah.
at now? I mean,
So, I don't necessarily think this, but because again, I'm a bit libertarian, so I think people should do whatever they're doing. But I saw somebody again on Twitter say the other day, and I just want to say, I don't necessarily think this, but it's an interesting comment. They were like, well, maybe it's good if those people want to all go have abortions. Do you want more people like them? Do you want them having kids? Do you want them raising them? Do you want more people like that? Or they were like, why don't more of these leftists? And I don't like left and right. I don't like putting things into boxes like that. And I especially hate liberal and conservative because they're just so weirdly arbitrary, because liberals are not liberal in the sense of the word liberal. They're not liberal anymore, they're completely authoritarian. It's crazy. And conservatives are not, what is it, fiscally conservative? are we just talking about money alone? Because I guess then maybe no.
Well, because conservatives is more the idea of holding traditions. So if you look at Canada, okay, well the people that would be seen as conservative, oh fuck, she died.
No, I'm still here. I didn't die. I'm still here. I'm just moving around again. Sorry.
Would be the people, oddly enough, I would be considered conservative. And I was going to say that the thing with Twitter is there's a website you can go on that shows your political affiliation by who you interact with on Twitter. And I think for us is 51% conservative, and it's 7% centrist, and then the rest is left leaning.
I want to know.
100%.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and I was going to say, do you follow me on Twitter? Because I said that exact same thing.
I don't think so. I'm a non. I'm a non on Twitter, so a lot of people don't know who I am. I'm a little mouthier on Twitter than I am other places.
It's lefty and proud of it. Just kidding.
Okay, so I was going to ask this last question, then we can get out of here.
Watch, we've been fighting on Twitter for 2 years and not known it.
That would be so funny.
Okay, sorry.
In terms of say with a doctor, because I have no problem with the argument is becoming that women are not gonna, for some reason, I don't understand where this is coming from. This reminds me very much of the parental rights and education bill that was passed in Florida. It was the bastardization, ad hominem, well, not ad hominem attacks, but completely misconstrue what this actually means. And then to get people, that emotional reaction, oh, it's going to be a Handmaid's Tale. Women are going to be forced to have, have some person's baby, rape, incest. Oh, it's all, we're back to, second-class citizens, which is completely untrue. But with that being said, should a doctor or should any professional, say in this industry, be forced to do something against their will?
No.
So if a doctor says, and that was actually one of our question on our last episode of, in a profession, if a doctor feels morally or ethically that they say, hey, I am not okay doing this in a professional setting, as my Hippocratic oath as a doctor is to minimize harm, is to try and save lives. And when you're actively taking lives, is that not a direct contradiction of what you swore to uphold, your own oath?
I think there's a bit of a caveat, though, to the idea of, okay, I do agree that a doctor should be able to say, nope, I'm not comfortable with that. For honestly, pretty much anything, really, because, or I guess within a certain code or guideline or whatever. Because, for example, in the building industry, there are things that I would say no to a client for, right? I just no, you can't do that. I won't do that for you. I won't draw that or whatever, right? It's a no from me. And so I do think, but the difference is in Canada, public health care means that we don't get a say all the time in who our care provider is or whether or not we can access one. We don't get a say in which specialist we get to see, right? Or when we get to access one, or whether or not we can change to a different one and get a different opinion, or how long it'll take us to access that. right? So those factors play in, in that matter, I think in a big way. Whereas that's one thing in the States. Like I know my uncle went to the States and paid out of pocket to have eye surgery because he needed it. And they were like, oh, we don't even know when you'll get in because of COVID. Right. And he's like, well, I'm losing my vision. And they're like, yeah, COVID.
Yay,
And
COVID.
so,
Yeah.
and he's like, okay, but like objectively, he's a smart guy. So he was like, okay, your hospital numbers aren't any different than they have been any other year. Really, what's the problem? Like, just let me in the hospital. So he's an accountant, right? So he's like, I understand the numbers. Like, just like, anyway. So he just went down and it literally took him like a week to get it booked and him down there and done and turned around and brought back home, and his vision completely corrected and no more risk of his eyeball literally exploding inside of his head, like while waiting for surgery,
And this is one thing. This is one thing that people do not understand in the States. Canada, you have free healthcare. No, we pay a lot for it. The numbers I was looking at, I've seen as high as 12,000. I've heard arguments as low as 3,000 to 4,000 per person, regardless if you use it or not. And in fact, about 80% of our population does not use a hospital. It's more for the 20% that do.
Yeah,
so 80%
absolutely.
is basically funding that 20%. And I've said before, if you have a back problem, or let's say you have a hip problem, it doesn't sound too bad. But now you start walking funny. So now your spine goes out of alignment. Your gait is all fucked up, which causes now chronic pain for years while you wait to see someone in order to do it. Instead of, I'll pay the $2,000 instead of being in chronic pain. I can't work. I can't do anything. So I'll pay the $2,000 and go to someone that can fix my hip or whatever the number is. Even if it's $10,000 to not be in chronic pain. For 2 years, I think anyone would take that bet.
Absolutely. I mean, even when I got sick of like some years ago with gallbladder problems and they put me on a waiting list for surgery, even though I didn't have stones, it's just inflamed and they didn't give a shit about why. And while I waited for this 6 to 12 months, I was like, well, I'm super sick. So I'm going to like try to do something. And I made myself better in the meanwhile by, changing my diet and taking care of myself differently or whatever stuff they didn't even offer to tell me how to do, my regular doctor. And did you know also about 30% of our healthcare is still privately funded through private insurance too.
It is becoming a little more prominent. I know BC has been pushing a lot for private practices. I think there are a few in Manitoba, if I remember correct. But in BC, it's becoming more and more prominent because all our doctors leave to the States.
But what I mean is like by people with private healthcare plans, right? Like there are so many things that are not actually covered, like any accessories, right? Like crutches and wheelchairs and prosthetics and like things like that, right? Diabetic supplies. We hear about this all the time, right? So some of these things aren't actually covered under healthcare. And then there are lots of things that if you have private insurance through, work or just that you pay for or whatever, so that you have dental and stuff, there are other things that are funded under that as well for hospital stays and stuff that otherwise would get billed. And a lot of it ends up falling under other funding. If you're on assistance or low income, then those things tend to cover it or whatever. But otherwise, it's privately funded, right? That's not coming out of the main healthcare system. Those additional things are separately funded from that main whatever we're putting into income tax. And Canada ranks 27th out of 28 nations with socialized healthcare, despite spending at the same rate as the number one rated nation based on percent of GDP.
What's the number one?
I have a Facebook post about that I made some time ago that has some great info, which I will send to you in the meanwhile. I think it's Sweden. I
Well,
I'm
Sweden,
99. It's Sweden or Switzerland. They sound nothing alike, but just the S messes with me, and I mix them up all the time.
well,
So,
even with those Nordic countries, like their tax rates are significantly higher than ours. I think it's upwards of 60 to 70% of their income tax, or of their tax rate. So they pay significantly more. Plus, they invest. Even if it is, I think it is, I think it is Switzerland that I think they have like a 60 or 70 that's considered number one, but they fund their healthcare pretty heavily. And for their population size, they're not very big.
No.
so
Before we get any further again, I have some thoughts here. Okay, so
okay.
with your question that you had, like about I guess morals and doctors and stuff like that, like should they have the right to refuse if it kind of goes against their morals or whatever ideals or religious whatever. I
Which is
personally,
ethics or moral.
yeah, I think they should. I think they should have that right to say no. However, if say I was a doctor and I was against, say, giving abortions, just because we're on that topic, okay?
Mhm.
If I was against doing that, then I think it should be mandatory that at that point, if I'm refusing to do it, that okay, I can say, well, I'm not going to do it, but here's a number and a contact for somebody who will, and direct them to the proper specialist or doctor that can perform said surgeries. I think people should have that right to be able to say no. If you want to be able to fight, or if you want to fight for people's rights to be able to choose what they do with their bodies, my body, my choice. Well, morals is the same thing. Ethics and morals, I think they should be able to say no if that goes against what they want to do. For me personally, if I were a doctor and somebody had given birth to a baby and said they wanted to abort it after the baby is born and breathing on its own, I would not be able to live with myself being able to do that. That's me personally. But,
Yeah.
but at the same time, like it really reminds me of the whole we've talked about it before in past episodes quite a while ago, the whole Jessica Unieve sister or situation. Okay, so Jessica Unieve was a man who liked to put on a wig and pretend that he was a woman or say he was a woman, and had booked himself an appointment at a bikini waxer's place for a bikini wax. Showed up, took down the pants and cock and balls. Okay. So the woman had refused service because she was expecting a vagina and received cock and balls in her face. So she said
Yeah.
no because she was uncomfortable with doing said things. He then
Yeah.
proceeded to do the whole I'm canceling you thing, take him to court, shit like that. Their business ended up getting shut down because she refused service to him. I think people should be able to say no if it's something that they're uncomfortable with and don't feel right. They should be able to have that choice personally. So
Absolutely.
that's
Yeah.
where my standing is on that.
But what if it's now there's a problem again? I've heard, for example, of doctors refusing to give a woman an IUD
Hmm.
or refusing to give a woman even a referral to talk to a surgeon about having a sterilization procedure
See,
because she's young and might want children later or whatever. And these are like, I've heard this firsthand from individuals now today here in Canada, never mind, like, you know, outside of that. Hey, just as
Hmm.
an aside, can I just put a link in this like message we're offended online
yeah, of course.
show, or
Yeah, yeah.
should I put it somewhere else?
No, you can put it in
No,
there and I
put
can
it
Oh, you
right
grab
can
in
it.
put it
there.
there.
But yeah, I see it. So yeah, I can grab it from there. But so
That's just one piece about like information about hospital business. I did a lot of research on this last year. I got very curious.
the thing is
Anyway,
I think
continue.
that it
Mhm.
should be one of those kind of mutual understanding things where, okay, this is what we feel. Okay, this is what we're going to say that you can make that choice. You can do this. But if you decide to go against this choice or you want to make the choice to opt out of said thing, then you have to be able to provide the person with proper medical care. So if I don't want to, me as a doctor doesn't want to give an abortion to somebody because I can't bring myself to do so, as hard as it would be for me to then give a name and number to somebody who could do it, a doctor that would do it, I think that that should be something that's a mandatory thing.
Yeah,
Because it's like, okay, well, you're
absolutely.
not actually doing the procedure because you're not comfortable with it, and we respect that. But you have to take care of your client's
Or there
uh,
should be like a third
patient.
party service that provides that
Yeah,
referral to you, right?
something. Yeah, there
Like
should
so
be
that it
something
doesn't
available.
even have to be your family doctor. Like a very when I chose to have an abortion, I was able to like I phoned this intake line and they gave me a wait time because it was near Christmas, of course, just to add to the
Of
fun of
course.
things.
Aw.
It was actually there. It was my birthday is early in December, and there was a terrible snowstorm, and I had to shovel and shovel and shovel and shovel, and I was super upset. And then I went in to have a hot bath, and my water wasn't working. And then, like the next day, I found out I was knocked out.
Oh
It's
my
just like the
God.
worst. It's just
That was
like
your
one of
three
those like
things right there.
this was so bad, right? Yeah. So anyway, now I lost my train of thought.
It's Kim.
Sorry.
No, I did that. It's my what
Oh,
I interjected with that extra commentary. What the heck were we just talking about?
You made a phone call.
doctor's choice making a referral.
It was no trouble to like they were it was too much of a wait through like to go through this like main intake line, and the woman was like, "Oh, it's okay. I can just give you the number of a doctor and you can phone her office directly and book an appointment and then like get into her clients." Like it wasn't a problem,
Well, see,
you
and that I
know?
think
Mm.
that's a good thing
So
too. So,
why
like,
can't we just have that, right? That
exactly. If a doctor
you can
doesn't feel
just
comfortable with doing the procedure or even recommending, I mean, if there's a number for somebody to call
yeah,
for them to then give them the information that's needed, 100%. Because the thing is, okay, I may not, me personally, if I were pregnant, I would not be able to go through with having an abortion. I just couldn't do it. But that's me personally. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't people out there who want to slash need to slash health slash money slash like that's their choice. Do you know what I mean? Like me personally, I couldn't, but I wouldn't want to
I
then
said it
my
too.
personal choice saying no, like I couldn't
Mhm.
do this. Um, I wouldn't want to then stop somebody else's ability to be able to do that because of my morals or my
Right,
thoughts. You know what I mean?
right.
Like, and that's kind of why I say like I'm on that tightrope kind of in the middle because it's against what I would want to do, and there are exceptions or ex- I can't think of the proper word right now.
Life has a way of
Extremes where it's
humbling
too
us.
much. Like
Like,
I think
you
that
know,
okay, well this is too far, but I can
yeah,
understand why somebody would make that choice.
yeah. And like, and without any air of, superiority or anything. Like I said it too. I would never do it myself. It's fine for other people if that's their choice. I would never do it myself,
Yeah.
you know? I said it. And I think that I was thinking of this before actually, and I jotted it down. So it's kind of neat that we circled around to it. Like all of us probably would compromise our morals to a certain extent if we're under a lot of pressure.
Oh,
Um,
100%.
Yeah.
you know, and it's variable, right? There are certain things, and I mean, it is like you really test your mettle when you are put into a difficult situation, right? Like so many people were, with employment mandates, as a simple example, right? That people had to decide: am I going to go take this job and make that sacrifice and keep my job, or am I going to lose my job, make that sacrifice? Like for my stance on this or whatever, right? And
Yeah.
that's where you see what you're willing, or just obviously there were people who are like, I'm comfortable getting this shot and I'm going to do it. And that's what I think is the right choice for me. And that's cool for them too. Like I wanted them to have access, right? It's another factor with healthcare. Like You should
Yeah.
make things available to people. And if people should get all the information. And if they want to do it, I don't care. You want to go get
Yeah.
15 of those, go ahead. You want to get like you want to like go do some speedballs and then ride a motorbike out of the back of a helicopter. I think I've already said this on your show. I like jump on a mountain or something and then like need to go to the hospital. I don't know. Go ahead. Like you're gonna overdose and get Narcan. Go ahead. Like I'm ride or die for the healthcare. It, overall, if we're gonna have public health care, like
Yeah.
use it up. It's got to be just like you can have it.
Well, that's the thing, like,
Yeah.
when people with the vaccines and stuff like that, if I had discrepancies about it or if I chose not to do it, honestly, I couldn't care less if someone got the vaccine or they didn't get the vaccine because to me, okay, well, that's their choice. Like, if this is what they want to
Yeah.
do, I'm gonna do what I feel is right for me, and I trust that people are gonna do what's right for them. Like, I don't think people should have to force people to do certain things. And with coming back full circle here, when it comes to like the Roe v. Wade thing, I think a lot of people have wrong or misconceptions about what this bill or whatever actually is and what overturning it actually is. Nobody is saying that abortions are going to be illegal and you're never going to be able to have them. It's
No,
allowing the
some
states
people
to make
will have
those
to travel out
choices.
of state though. Like
Some
some
might,
states
yes,
will for sure. Yeah. And
100%.
I
Like,
can see that, you know,
but out of the
just being scary or just imagine you're like having a tough, like you're having a bad miscarriage and you need to have a DNC,
yeah,
and now you have to fight about it, right? Or like go have some kind of court hearing, like while you're bleeding and losing your baby
yeah.
or
And I
whatever.
mean,
I
the
don't
thing
Yeah.
know.
is,
That
like,
shit's kind of fucked up too,
with
right?
it too, that like they're talking about out of how many states are in the United States? Is it 51 or 52? Whatever. But four of them,
Isn't it just 50 straight up?
I don't. I thought Hawaii was the 51st state, but I could be wrong. Whatever. I don't know. I'm not
Um,
American. So we'll say
Pretty
don't they
50
sure
not
51.
they have.
actually, didn't they just appropriate Hawaii?
I don't know.
Yeah, they invaded
Sorry,
it.
that's another factor.
I don't
I
know.
think it's
Whatever
bullshit.
number it may be, like statistics show only
Well,
four of those states would be against having the abortion anyway. So you think,
there's significantly more. It's not just for. I know there are a lot of states that have trigger laws that the second Roe v. Wade gets overturned, theirs automatically kicks in. There are some that are going to
Yeah,
look at outright
Texas
banning them,
has it
or yeah, the
for
trigger laws.
sure. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
there's quite a few. I think there's 13 actually that have trigger laws waiting for when Roe v. Wade gets overturned.
Montana does too. And in Montana, it's straight up moment of conception and murder charge.
Yeah, so they're going hard in the paint.
Like some of it is like scary. And I think, but I'm not, maybe I shouldn't say without, I think in some of those states that they'll like charge you even if you go do it out of state.
Yeah,
see,
I don't that
see
I'm not sure, but
that I would fight against. Like, to be honest, I don't think that that's right. I think now what we've talked about a few times already is the up to and including birth. So after the baby has been born, at that moment, I can understand that ruling. But in your first
Yeah.
yeah,
trimester, I can't. I
Yeah,
really
I feel
can't.
like first trimester is like a very reasonable and achievable
Yeah,
timeline.
absolutely.
Like
yeah.
really,
Yeah.
unless there's, I mean, I have heard of situations where people were put on waiting lists. And actually, even in states where they had laws about it, and then they're put on waiting lists, and then like the waiting list is longer than the law about how long or whatever. And that is really problematic too, because that's
Yeah.
basically like forcing again,
See,
kind
and
of thing.
Yeah.
that again would be one of those situations where I would understand. Do you know what I mean? Like I don't think it'd be any easier. Like morally, like thinking about it, I don't think it would be any
Yeah.
easier, and I think it would be
Yeah.
much harder on the mother. Um, but if you're being forced to wait and you've already made that choice within the proper amount of time, that's another thing too. Like that would be another one of those situations where, okay, I can understand that. And I don't know. I think I would like to hear anybody who's actually listened to this long, um, to what your feelings are on this whole thing. Like, do you understand more so what the laws are now? What it is that they're trying to do, what it is that they did do, and what your feelings are on this whole situation. Like, do you feel like this is a really bad mistake? Are you pro it? Are you against it? Like, leave it in the comment section below. Let us know what you're feeling about this. Um, I think we're going to wrap this up. We've taken up a lot of your time
Yeah,
today on a Friday.
bedtime. It's
Yes.
bedtime for us. Yeah.
Yes. So thank you so much, Amy, for
It's
coming.
Switzerland. It's Switzerland. Thank you for having me. Switzerland is the number one.
Oh, okay, okay. I was
Yeah, I
like, what's
figured.
Switzerland? Okay,
It's
okay.
always Switzerland.
Because
The answer is
Yeah. When
yeah,
in doubt.
because it has to do a lot of with their banking. Has to do, I think, with a lot of their how they invested their money. Their country is extremely wealthy. So
Yes.
awesome. Okay, well,
Yes.
thank you very much, Amy. It
yeah.
was
Thanks
a
for
great
having me, guys.
conversation.
As
Thanks for the
always, it was a
impromptu
pleasure.
invite. I like your impromptu invites. They usually work out. So
Yes. No, I like it
for
too because
sure.
it's a different perspective, right? So there are certain things that we kind of you think differently than I do and that Tyler does. So it's kind of nice having that kind of that conversation without it being an argument, without it whatever, like being able to have a
Yeah,
respectful conversation. I like
I'm not offended by it.
it.
Yeah.
Good.
I value the balancing effect of disagreement.
Yes.
Um,
Hmm.
and I'm not like threatened by it.
Good.
Right. So yeah, for sure.
Awesome.
And nor are you too. So it's happy.
No.
Yeah.
So don't forget you
Positive.
can check us
Yeah.
out in all the places listed in the description box below. Um, have have a fantastic weekend and hope you all had a good week. Have a good Friday. Bye
Yeah.
guys.
Take it easy, folks. Bye.